Good morning to everybody out there in the Card Runners community. It's about 6 a.m. here in New Zealand. I've got a nice early start. I've logged a few hands and I've started on your next video installment. And I'm introducing something new. I'd like to hear feedback if you like it. So I'm going to do a conventional 45 or 50-minute video in which I just play and voice over it myself afterwards at 601k PLO, but I'm going to intertwine a specific teaching concept with reference to a few of the hands we encounter. This concept today is the slow playing of made hands, so with no further ado, let's get into the material. I will be bringing tables in and out because I am playing more than 4 real time during the actual play of this session, but I'm always just going to have 4 on the screen for us to focus on, and anytime there's an interesting hand in another table, it will be brought over and substituted for a table with a non-interesting hand going on. We're going to focus on table number 4, that is the bottom right, with table number 1 being the top left, and the other tables numbered accordingly. And this actually is the first part of our teaching concept today. We've c-bet the flop and we've been check called. It's just a game that has recently began and I don't know anything about the opponent. I'm going to pause the material here and bring in PowerPoint so you can see my considerations. I call this teaching concept the partial post-flop slow play. It's not completely accurate to call it a slow play because while you are often slow playing a made hand, you are in part trying to induce action from a hand that could otherwise not give you action. When implementing this, generally I think a stack to pot ratio of 3 or less is what you need to be looking at. This is because we need to be able to get stacks in on the river in case of being against a second best hand, and you don't want to miss the chance to get stacks in, because if you do get stacks in, it is super profitable. And if you're going and slow playing with really deep stack to pot ratios, you're going to cost yourself a lot of money long term for the odd time that you do miss out on the chance to stack your opponent. But for the most part, when you are implementing these slow playing of made hands, the best you can actually hope for is to induce one bluff or allowing a second best hand to actually make something on the river, and then this gets you one street of value. So for the most of the time, we are just searching for that little one street of value when any other action would have led to the opponent folding. To implement this, don't go doing it versus the really passive, not thinking, check call, check fold opponents. We do want our opponents to be river bluffers when we try and implement this on them. And the times that we might have, a setup in mind as part of their range, when we feel that they can plausibly have a second best hand right now, don't start slow playing. We want them to be placed on a range when they're going to have trouble calling us if we bet the turn, given the range that we've got them on. The hand that we're about to look at is a perfect example of that. So Hula Boo on table number 4 has check called the flop prior to me moving it into your focus, and we've got effectively the nuts. I think his range here is going to consist of some 10 jacks or some 10 jack queens and some clubs that will occasionally incorporate some well played dry 6-7s. But that type of range does really epitomize what I'm talking about here, whereby when it is 10 jack queen, etc., and clubs, they're not going to be able to call if we go ahead and make a second bet, whereas they might make a club, they might make a straight, and they might make a bluff on the river. While the stack to pot ratio is not quite 3 to 1, if he goes ahead and bets a hundy, we're going to be able to make it 400. Well, not given our stack, but we are going to be able to get stacks in here if he does bluff or value bet, for close to pot. So with that in mind, I do think betting the turn by me here, I do go ahead and bet the turn. I do think betting the turn by me is a mistake. As you can see, I do consider checking the flop. But really, the only thing I can see giving us action here is like the case 8 and a well-played dry 6-7, I do consider check calling a dry 6-7 there quite a decent move by an opponent, but I don't think he has either the dry 8 or the slow played 6-7 here, and he just goes ahead and folds.